He was once the prince few knew beyond Riyadh's palace walls. Young, bold, and surrounded by older, more seasoned royals. But in just a few short years, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, would become the architect of a silent economic invasion. Not with soldiers or oil rigs, but with billions. A tidal wave of capital that would sweep across American tech, entertainment, defense, and even politics. This story doesn't begin with a business deal, it begins with ambition. When MBS first emerged in global headlines around 2015, he was Saudi Arabia's youngest ever defense minister. Most dismissed him as inexperienced, but what they missed was this. He wasn't looking to preserve the kingdom's past. He was building its future, and that future needed something more powerful than oil. It needed leverage. Within 2 years, MBS launched Vision 2030, a sweeping blueprint to wean the kingdom off crude. It sounded like a standard reform plan, but hidden between its lines was a strategy so far-reaching it would eventually pull in Silicon Valley, Hollywood, Wall Street, and even the Oval Office. MBS began quietly. In 2016, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, PIF, made its first major move, $3.5 billion into Uber. Not a random pick. Uber was disruptive, global, and American. It was the perfect entry point. That investment turned heads. Suddenly, Wall Street took notice, and while analysts debated the morality of Saudi money, MBS was already moving to the next phase. By 2017, the play became more aggressive. He invested $45 billion into SoftBank's Vision Fund, effectively becoming its largest backer. That fund pumped money into American giants like WeWork, Nvidia, DoorDash, and Slack. The message was clear. Saudi Arabia wasn't just buying into the West, it was owning pieces of its future. And then came the night that changed everything. In November 2017, dozens of Saudi princes, billionaires, and officials were summoned to the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. But this wasn't a party, it was a purge. MBS had them detained in a bold anti-corruption crackdown. Critics called it a power grab, supporters called it a cleansing. But behind it all, MBS secured billions in settlements, some say over $100 billion. Suddenly, the PIF was flush with capital, and MBS had no rivals left in his way. With the kingdom's elite subdued, he turned his eyes outward. Hollywood came next. The PIF poured money into AMC Theaters, Live Nation, and later acquired stakes in Nintendo, Capcom, and even Activision Blizzard. Entertainment was a new frontier for Saudi influence, and MBS was playing long-term. In public, Saudi Arabia was hosting WWE events and Formula One. In private, it was buying into the infrastructure of global pop culture. But nowhere was the influence more potent than in Washington, D.C. Under the Trump administration, MBS formed an unusually close relationship with Jared Kushner and the president himself. Trump made his first foreign trip not to Europe, not to Canada, but to Saudi Arabia. Red carpets, sword dances, glowing orbs. The symbolism was unmistakable. Trump praised MBS's reforms. In return, Saudi Arabia signed over $100 billion in arms deals, though not all of it materialized. Still, the alliance was sealed, and when the brutal murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018 threatened to destroy MBS's reputation, something remarkable happened. Trump, under global pressure, didn't cut ties. He defended the kingdom, even suggesting the crown prince might not have known about the killing. Critics were stunned, but MBS had already made himself indispensable to the American economy, to defense contractors, and yes, to the Trump White House. That leverage didn't end with Trump's term. When Biden entered office promising to make Saudi Arabia a pariah, it seemed like the tide had turned. But reality had other plans. Gas prices surged. The Ukraine war disrupted energy supply chains. And suddenly, Biden was flying to Jeddah, fist-bumping the same man he once vowed to isolate. MBS had outlasted the outrage. By 2024, Saudi investments in the U.S. had soared past $600 billion. From stakes in Tesla, Lucid Motors, and Blackstone to deep ties with venture capital and real estate, MBS wasn't just a guest in America's economy. He was becoming a landlord. Even Kushner, after leaving the White House, secured a $2 billion investment from the Saudi PIF for his private equity firm. Critics cried foul, but it was already too late. The lines between politics and profit had blurred. Today, the Saudi PIF is one of the most aggressive investors on the planet. Its influence stretches from Wall Street boardrooms to Silicon Valley startups, and behind it all stands one man, MBS, who has transformed from a shadow prince to one of the most powerful players in the global economy. He didn't need to declare war. He just bought the battlefield. So when we talk about influence, when we talk about dependency, ask yourself, who really holds the cards? Because while America debates politics, MBS is playing economics. And in that game, $600 billion buys a lot more than silence. It buys power.